2 in about 1 month's time. That's the number of retail marijuana stores the region is set to have, pending the opening of INSA in Easthampton. The opening of New England Treatment Access in Northampton last month brought with it some long lines, increased traffic. Those are things that Easthampton Mayor Nicole LaChapelle and INSA Easthampton CEO Mark Zatirka say that they've planned for. We'll get to questions about those matters in a moment, but first I asked Zatirka the question that many people want an answer to. When will they open?
We don't have an exact date yet. Sometime between hopefully the December 13th and the 24th, sometime in between there.
Great. And so as you're gearing up to add recreational to the already medicinal facility that you have there, you've had the maybe great good fortune of watching 2 other medical dispensaries, recreational dispensaries open up in the region. Have you observed anything that's happened there that you're adjusting for at INSA?
Sure, yeah, I think first I'd like to point out that I think they did a lot of things right. Everybody was very civil and everything went fairly smoothly. I think it drew attention to the fact that we really need to focus on traffic and parking. And I think that's an advantage that we have over the other 2 operators currently operating in the recreational market.
Meaning you have some more space, right?
Right. So we have about 3 times the number of spaces, plus we'll have multiple overflow lots as well. So our goal is to get people off of Pleasant Street as quickly as possible to try to be as least disruptive to the local community and ensure that they have a place to park. They're not affecting our other businesses as well in the Mill District, and that everything is very manageable and orderly as much as possible.
Mayor, as you have observed the processes roll out, probably more in Northampton maybe than in Leicester because it's a little closer, right? Have you talked with the mayor in Northampton about what the process was like for him and maybe some things you might adjust for?
We talked before the actual opening of NETA, just a little back and forth about where each firm was as far as opening for retail. A lot of conversation has happened between the public safety departments of all 3 of these communities. And, you know, to look at the first 2 openings, I do think there were a lot of things that were done right. One of the lessons that myself and public safety departments have really learned is about flexibility. This is a new industry. It's a very new thing for our area. We have unique traffic patterns, and to be flexible once you see the flow, the ebb and the flow, and how many consumers are coming in and out, it's important to be able to react to that, and it's certainly a good lesson we've taken from both of the other communities. And INSA, Mark and his team, have been very good partners. I mean, the conversations between different departments in City Hall and my office have been ongoing, for the last year for sure. So we anticipate a couple more conversations before opening and to adjust the plan, but also plan for overflow or alternatives so the traffic can flow as smoothly as possible.
I think one of the things that we saw when we were out in Northampton on the first day of opening, obviously the long lines stand out, right?
Sure.
We talked to folks, it took between 3 and 1 hour to get their products from the inside of the store. Seeing those long lines has some people in South Hadley concerned. They have not approved the use of marijuana in that community. And the South Hadley Drug and Alcohol Coalition, when they spoke with us, they said those long lines create some hype, especially for young kids. They're concerned that this is sending the wrong message to kids, that this is this great thing that you should be standing in line for. Are you either of you concerned about that?
Well, we do all we can to not market towards kids in any way. Having a long line is a little bit out of our control. I think that's just the way the state has approved different operators at the pace that they're approving them at.
Do you think those lines will die down once more facilities are open across the state?
Yeah, definitely. And being the first 2 open, really east of the Mississippi, that's a big deal, and that's a lot of focus on just 2 sites. We hope to be the 3rd or 4th open east of the Mississippi. So I'm sure we'll still have long lines, but as the state starts to approve more and more dispensaries, those lines will most definitely go down.
I mean, the process in Easthampton around the ordinance and the consideration of location and lines and what the public can see and proximity to schools was a long, vetted public conversation, not just around the INSA application, but the creation of our ordinance. And there was an important, lesson to be learned there. When you looked at the effect of alcohol, vaping, the lottery, and those very attractive, fun, flashy signs, what does that message send to the youth? So not that the lines aren't, an attractive nuisance, and children, those under 21, won't be, a heightened interest. They're also walking by a lot of alcohol, tobacco, and lottery signs that are very enticing and not appropriate for their age. And in both cases, whether it's cannabis industry or those other industries, it's about forward-thinking education and choices, and letting children know in a very informal, fact-filled process of what these choices are about, and regardless of how they're presented or who's in line, that there is a time and a place, and there are reasons for that.
On the other side of this, money has been a factor. In addition to the 3% local tax you're going to pay, INSA also agreed to 3% of the gross sales, is that right, to pay that to the local community? Why did you agree to that additional 3%?
Well, we certainly don't want to be a burden on the community, and we understand that the community needs to be comfortable with us being there, or else the relationship won't work. And so we felt like that was something that we could do to help support the local community and the schools and everything else that can make Easthampton even a better place for the community that lives there.
To the point about that money, if you kind of swap INSA and NETA, assuming the sales figures that they've brought in kind of in the first 2 weeks, you're looking at about $78,000 if you were to swap those facilities in just 2 weeks. Any thoughts on how the community will use this additional money?
So in the last year, and just started to roll it out in a more holistic way, we've started a new budget practice that's based on a national model that actually forecasts out this type of revenue and where we need to be when the economy is not so robust, when we don't have an exciting new business coming into town, and where those monies will be to offset the debt that we're coming on with the school bond, and to look at our capital improvements. I think the other thing to note is the thoroughness and vetting of local ordinance, but also the state process, has been a long time coming. And the impact on the local, our local departments have been noticeable. And there are other parts of projects as well as resources that we would have liked to pursue sooner, that we need to go back and fill some of those gaps because the state requirements were so stringent and something so new. So 3% is exciting, and the figure of $78,000 is very exciting. And I wish INSA all the success of NETA. Dollars earned are best well spent and cautiously spent. So we have a long budget discussion to have around those funds and what we're doing. But public safety, there's a lot to produce for the commission, and I think our departments have done a very good job partnering with INSA, but it comes at a cost.